Okay, we are rolling. Yep. So, welcome back to this channel where, well, let me start. My name is Jake Hart. This is my company's Blood and Water, focuses on mineral balancing to help people heal from chronic illness of virtually any sort. You might have seen me on Instagram or ads out there. And that's a much different version of myself here. Nothing scripted, it's all stream of consciousness, and I just want to talk to people out there who can resonate with any messages that I have to say and see if I can help some people. That's really the point of this YouTube channel. Some of it's just me rambling. Generally, I have a topic for every video. I'm trying to create, very cohesive videos and thoughts. And today, I want to talk about nicotine and alcohol. Because those are two things that can really help and really hurt, actually, throughout healing and just throughout the human experience in general. And I wanted to start with this guy. So this is not what you think it is. This is actually a nicotine-free vape. It's Canna. Canna is an herb that I really, really like. It has positive, antidepressant effects on the antidepressant-like effects on the body, and it's actually one of the most studied herbs out there. It was standardized into an extract called Zembrin and studied quite extensively. I think there's about 30 studies out there on it. You can look it up. Zembrin. But it's basically a South African succulent plant that, when it's extracted and used for medicinal purposes, has a very antidepressant-like effect and can increase serotonin in the synaptic cleft, or our ability to hold on to serotonin in the synaptic cleft, and can sort of regulate and modulate, how would I say it? It's like an nervous system regulator, if I had to put it, my own words. A regulator of the nervous system. Kind of helps calm you down. You can take it in high doses. You can take it in lower doses. Perhaps I'll do another video on Canna itself. And maybe I'll include a link too, because there's only one company that I buy from, because they are really, really clean. I've talked to the owner, Ryan. He's a great guy, and I've tested the products myself. I sent them to a lab, third-party lab myself, to get tested, because herbs notoriously have a lot of metals. They collect a lot of metals as they grow in the soil, because metals are everywhere. Cadmium, arsenic, lead, those are pretty common metals that you would see in marijuana, tobacco, and it's something like Canna as well. However, this guy's doing it totally by the books and clean, and uses his own soil and everything, and it's just really, really clean product. I wouldn't trust any other Canna products out there, or many other herbs, to be completely honest, unless you get a COA, certificate of analysis, from the company. Anyways, we're getting a little sidetracked here, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Canna and how it can substitute for something like nicotine or alcohol. But first, I want to talk about kind of this last year that I've had. We're in early December, and this whole year I haven't had any nicotine or alcohol. It's always been, nicotine and alcohol have been a great source of relief for me. Since I was, I don't even know, I started drinking when I was about 14, 15. And started smoking cigarettes when I was 17, 18. And that was all just for party and fun. But as I kind of got older, and started to sort of drink during the week here and there, and have a couple cigarettes here and there, I kind of started to realize I kind of need a system in place to monitor how much of these things I'm actually doing, because it'd be very easy to have 2 or 3 beers every night, even while I'm chronically ill, right, for that release, that relief, and maybe have a cigarette maybe once a day, maybe once a week. So I kind of was just realizing, sometimes I would drink multiple times a week, sometimes I wouldn't, but there's no rhyme or reason. I mean, obviously it was mostly just social functions and being with friends, and just the release, the euphoria you get just from, going, and what I would do is just go take a cold plunge. And before I eat dinner, because I would, cold plunge just totally relaxes me and just makes me feel so good. Releases dopamine and a lot of what I would imagine is a lot of GABA and just very calming neurotransmitters and just breath of fresh air, right? Cold therapy is something I love doing. I love taking really intense cold plunges. After that, I would have one beer, just one, before my dinner, and I would just be like, oh, I just have this sense of euphoria, and just feel so good, and be able to loosen up and interact and kind of just enjoy cooking dinner or hanging out with people and then eating a really nice dinner. And there is evidence to show that actually drinking alcohol can help you release a lot of gastric acid and help you digest your meal better, similar to like bitters. But I couldn't do that every night. That would set me back, because just one nice strong IPA beer would, the next morning I would just kind of taste it in my mouth and my throat, and then I'd want to have a cigarette after dinner, and even just one beer and one cigarette a day. I could hold myself to that, but I could tell it was not helping me. It was helping me in the moment, and that's the thing. Some people say that, wine, coffee, those are some of the most healing drinks that we have. Why? Because they're shared with others. And that's really important to note. If you're drinking by yourself, I would say that that's a pretty full stop red flag. Don't do that. I wouldn't. That just is, it's way too easy to get out of hand if you're drinking by yourself. Maybe very occasionally, but I think the point in my mind, and I'm not right about everything. Certainly not. I'm wrong about a lot of things, and you're free to disagree. But I think the point is to connect with others through alcohol, even with nicotine. Well, nicotine's a little bit different. You could use that, Obviously, there's a lot of positive effects that we've seen with nicotine, with, post C word. I'm not going to say it, but, C word 19, people have gotten the jab from that and have seen a lot of positive effects from using nicotine. The cleanest delivery for nicotine would be like nicotine gum, and that has certain, biochemical effects that I'm not going to explain in this video. But anyways, nicotine is sort of a different story, but I'm talking about more alcohol and nicotine in terms of like social settings. So if you're doing those things by yourself a lot, I would say that's not a good idea, and you really have to reconsider things and take stock and realize, what can I do instead of those things. Like for me, like a cold plunge would give me almost the same euphoria as like drinking would. So that's why I would really rely on that a lot. And I would try not to push myself too much into cold plunging, because it can really tax the body and deplete certain minerals and nutrients, and can work against you if you're doing it too much. So I do a couple minutes a day, I found was pretty good. Dr. Huberman, says I think 11 minutes a week total is like the therapeutic level. And for alcohol, he also says, and I trust him generally, he says about 2 drinks max per week before alcohol will start to work against you. And I think that that's pretty wise. And that might, for some people, that might be like, what? 2 drinks a week? That's nothing. For some of you, you're like, I don't drink at all. Like, I can't drink. I feel horrible when I drink. I don't smoke or drink because I'm chronically ill. So anyways, I think a really good rule of thumb, I don't think you need to cut out nicotine and alcohol entirely if you're chronically ill. I know that might be a bit of a hot take, but I think if you're able to use it occasionally, and you're able to use it to connect to people, and you're able to use it in social settings it's bringing you life, loosening you up, and just giving you a rest, right? Because chronic illness can just beat you down so hard, where all day you're just fucking trapped in your mind, and things are just beating you up left and right. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like there's sometimes demons attacking you from all angles. You're just getting clobbered with these horrible thoughts all day long, and you're just battling and battling and battling. And then you're tired, and then your gut's all messed up, and your thyroid's jacked up, and you're trying to get that better, but then you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. There's all these things that are going through your head. It's like, how am I going to get better? Well, having a little relief from that, I think, is really, really important. And so if you're able to use it sparingly, to use it very occasionally, I think it's okay to use nicotine and alcohol, but I don't think it's a everyday type of thing. You know, perhaps if you had one cigarette a day and you were growing your own organic tobacco and it was not, you know, there could be an argument out there. But no, if you're using nicotine for you know, to recover from chronic illness, for other intentional reasons, that's a different story. What happened to me this past year when I stopped using, so for me, I guess I'll backtrack a little bit. The last couple years, I mean, all throughout my chronic illness, I never completely gave up nicotine or alcohol, but I took big breaks and would use it sparingly, and then sometimes would be more frequently. And I realized I couldn't control. I was like, I either have to set like a really hard rule for myself that I'm only going to drink once a week or something, or I either have to just give it up completely. And what I realized is that when I tried to set a rule for myself, like I'm only going to have one drink on Friday night and one drink on Saturday night, something like that, I wasn't able to adhere to it. I mean, I have a very strong will in some ways, in other ways I don't. And in that way, anytime I'd be hanging out with friends and there'd be alcohol there, I'd be like, oh, I'll just have one drink. And that's usually what I was able to do, hold it to one, maybe two. But the reality was I couldn't control when or how in a lot of different ways. And so what I ended up doing was at the beginning of this year, stopping completely and saying no nicotine or alcohol for this entire year. And that's actually what I realized I had to do, because I had basically had no control. Once I introduced a little bit, I couldn't stop. And not like I had to have, you know, multiple drinks or 10 drinks at once or something, but it was like, if I have a drink once a week, it's going to turn into 2 a week, 3 a week, 4 a week. And what I realized this year was that it was a lot easier to stop completely cold turkey. And once I was in the mindset that I'm going to do this for 365 days, I'm not going to touch anything, it became actually very easy to avoid it. Because I had this sort of container set for myself and this rule set for myself. And with the determination and goal in mind that it's only going to increase my health, which of course I started sleeping better. I started to just overall mood improved. I mean, you know, you get to a certain level where you kind of convince yourself my health can't get much better, or you convince yourself like this thing isn't really bothering me that much. Maybe it's gluten or dairy, something like that. It's like, nah, this is not really bothering me that much. And then you cut it out and you realize how big of an effect it has. And I know one doctor in particular who put himself on benzos because he was so anxious, because he couldn't figure out what was wrong, but he was just anxious all the time. And all he did was cut out nicotine and caffeine. Actually, it wasn't even alcohol that he was struggling with. He was just struggling with coffee and Zyn, nicotine. And after he cut those things out, he didn't have any need for pharmaceuticals anymore to calm himself down. Like, his anxiety went totally away. So it just shows you how these substances can have such a major, powerful effect on your body. And yes, there's a ton of science behind it, but I'm not here to talk about that. You can look up, Huberman's got a lot of information on that. And I, again, generally trust him. So for me, it's sort of black and white. I hope to get to a point one day where I can really enjoy things like nicotine and alcohol more sparingly, maybe once a week, twice a week. But for now, I'm thinking next year. Next year, 2026, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go no nicotine, no alcohol. Might as well just do 2 years of this. And I guess the last thing I'll say is Kana, which this is kind of silly, this vape. I don't really like vaping. But I usually take it in a powder form or a capsule form. But that's been a really great replacement for me, especially like in social settings, being able to take capsules or put the powder in some drink that I'm having and have some Kana with social situations. Very much like a social lubricant, very much calms you down, makes you feel very good. So that's good for you. Like overall, the studies show that it only improves the regulation of your nervous system over time. So something like that, I think, is a really healthy alternative and replacement. That's only going to make you healthier, and it's only going to make you a better person, I think, in general. So finding, for you, it might not be that, but finding something like that. For me, it's like cold plunges, Kana. Those are huge. Finding a replacement could be just intense exercise, or it could be any number of things that sort of provide a similar release for you that something like nicotine or alcohol might do, or a sense of euphoria. I know for a lot of people it's really hard, even with exercise, if you're exercise intolerant, or if you can't get into the cold water, or you can't do the infrared sauna, which I would encourage you to try those things. But if you can't do those things, I get it. It's hard to obtain that sense of euphoria and feel good and get that respite and that break from the chronic beatdown that chronic illness provides. Just finding something to give that relief and replacing that with something like nicotine, alcohol, or caffeine. These things are just generally, well, caffeine's a different topic. I think that can vary for people. Some people can actually have really positive effects. Other people, not so much. Depends on how you use it, how often, how much. But generally speaking, nicotine and alcohol deplete B vitamins, zinc, enzymes, and a lot of other things. Which is why, like, you just sleep like shit. The next morning you feel bad. You just know it's not good for your body. But using it occasionally to connect with people could be a net benefit, net positive in the end. So I guess I'm here to say that if you want to commit to no nicotine or alcohol for 2026, comment. Just post a comment that says I'm in. And if I get enough comments and there's a really good response, maybe we'll start some sort of a group or some sort of accountability system, or just some sort of, thing where we can kind of just be in it together. I don't know what that looks like, but even just commenting on it and talking about it and dialoguing, talking about it with other people can help to reinforce that commitment of, like, I'm not going to touch nicotine or alcohol for a whole year and just see how my life changes. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this video. Just a short, quick one. I just wanted to kind of get that out there, that I'm probably going to be doing that for 2026. If I get a lot of comments, and people are enthused about it, then, I'm definitely committing to this again, because it only made my life better. Yeah, but for now, this stuff. Stuff is good. So find your replacement, find a way to cope, find a way to get that release without using substances that are going to deplete you, and do everything you can to commit to living a healthier, better life, and it'll pay off in the end. So yeah, that's it for now. We'll see you in the next one.